Welcome back to On Texas Football's Wednesday night Longhorn Livestream. I'm your host, Amanda Atwell, joined by CJ Vogel and Jeff Howe. Cannot get my words out today. How are you doing today, guys?
Amanda's just excited about that injury report coming out. It's okay.
Yeah, I am. I'm very excited to see some names that are not just listed as out. Just a little bit of optimism there. So we'll get right into it. If you have any questions, make sure you pop them into the chat. Super chats will jump to the top of our list. But yes, injury report just came out around 7:10 p.m. We don't have anybody on the out end of this injury report today. Manning and Taff both practicing today and listed as questionable. And Cole Hudson and Lance Jackson also listed as questionable, and probable Aaron Butler. So overall, I think pretty much positive news. A little bit of optimism in getting QB1 back out there this week, more so than I think what we saw after the injury initially happened.
Yeah, this is as fortunate as Texas has been given this situation at quarterback a week ago. You know, when Arch left the field, it looked like a pretty severe concussion, to be completely honest. You know, the blow to the back of the head, it didn't look good for Arch Manning, but he has been increasing participation is, I think, the best way I could describe it. On Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, he was back practicing. Sarkisian mentioned that today on the SEC teleconference. That's a great sign. Now, Texas, again, I mentioned it last night, Texas is going to do everything that they can to get Manning back on the field. I know I mentioned that over on TexasFootball.com earlier today. A couple Texas fans got some David Ash 2.0 PTSD for that one. But trust me, they're taking the cautionary side here, and the Mannings will not allow, as we've talked about it, will not allow Arch to be forced into, premature participation once again. So it's trending in the right direction for Texas and Arch Manning on Saturday.
It's important to just hammer home again. Sark, confirmed today on the SEC call, as CJ said, Arch is still in concussion protocol, was as of today. So he has not cleared protocol yet. So this is very encouraging, but don't anybody just go run thinking that this automatically means that Arch is playing on Saturday.
Yeah, do you think as far as Taff goes, what are your thoughts there? Because I think that was what I was more surprised to see, because I feel like initially we got a pretty definitive answer with Taff. Was the day that was circled for him to get back was Georgia initially, and this would be a very early return. If it's because, he's on here as questionable, not as doubtful.
Yeah, it would be a quick return, but that's Michael Taff, right? This is a guy who, bleeds burnt orange. He's going to do whatever he can to be on the field. I know it killed him last week to not be out there, in the middle of the field for the Texas Longhorns against Mississippi State. So we'll see. Questionable with him is probably the most 50-50 of that bunch, if I had to take a guess. For folks wondering, I don't have any update on Lance Jackson. I haven't heard in particular why he is questionable. But right now for Michael Taff, look, I think he's going to do whatever he can to get back on the field. And look, that's pretty significant considering surgery was about 9 days ago.
It's got a little John Mateer in him. But from what I heard, his injury was worse than John Mateer's. Do you have any clarity on that?
I don't know the specifics of John Mateer's. But I know that Taff had some screws or pins inserted, and that is why, obviously, the original date was Georgia, so he could have 2 weeks off plus the bye week to get in and make sure that everything on the interior of his hand is not at risk of further or significant re-injury, because I'm no doctor, but we might be talking to a doctor here soon. That's something that I can't speak on a whole lot. Forward.
I can only speak from the having been injured before, and my hand injury actually required pins in it, and the pin had to be removed before I could do any activity. So that's the one thing. There's all different kinds. That happened when I was in 5th grade, so who knows how technology has progressed since then. Maybe the pins dissolve in your hand now, who knows? Mm-hmm. But that's just, it seems improbable to me that he would be back so soon. I guess you can strap a club on him.
Well, I think what CJ said, though, that hits the nail on the head. Like, that's the big thing here. Based on the nature of the surgery and, the intricacies of it, is there a protective, something protective you can put on there to where, like, okay, he's not going to, harm the integrity of the surgery or have a setback or whatever. Like, he's healed enough to where you can protect it and he can play. Probably not, whatever apparatus he has, probably not going to be conducive to him intercepting a ball. But hey, Taff has had a couple chances for turnovers this year, fumble recovers that hadn't happened anyway. So I don't know, maybe would do him some good. Maybe he'd be a little more careful. I don't know. I kid, I jest. But no, this is getting him back is huge for this game for a lot of reasons. But I think the main reason is I keep going back to it, CJ. Jelani McDonald had probably his best game last year against Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And, you look at Vanderbilt, how much Vanderbilt utilizes the tight ends. The tight ends are a really big part of their offense. Like, I want Jelani McDonald to roam and for PK to be able to use him as liberally as possible. Like, don't pigeonhole him into a role in this game. Like, have him spy, have him be over the tight end, whatever, have him as a box defender. If you've got Michael Taff, it makes it that much easier to do that with Jelani.
And as far as Arch goes with Caldwell as a backup, if Arch is cleared, could you see them potentially using Caldwell more and doing kind of a 2-quarterback look instead? Just because, there is that risk of he's in concussion protocol right now. So even if he's cleared by then, there's always, I don't know, I feel like 6 days is just a tight timeline. Once again, we might hear from a doctor pretty soon. I'm not a doctor, so don't take my medical advice. But it just still seems like the brain isn't something you want to re-injure.
No, it's not. But if he's ready to go, he's going. And he'll be getting every single snap, in my opinion. Yeah.
I don't think Sark would do a 2-quarterback deal. And I think the closest he would get is if they had a legit Wildcat quarterback. I think you would probably see them do more Wildcat this game, but they don't. So they won't. We haven't. CJ, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We haven't seen a Wildcat since Savion Red transferred out, have we?
That's correct. However, there is a package. I won't divulge more than that, but they have had a package at some point in practice over the last month or two where that look has come back, and that's something that was brand new from a year ago. They did not even practice it a single time a year ago. But going back to Savion Red, Jeff, you're absolutely correct. That was the last time, and I think it was against Kansas State in a very similar situation where you host a top 25 team at home with a backup quarterback. And I think that was the last time that we actually even saw that package, was in that exact same similar outlook. It just, for whatever reason, that was a game, or that was a package and play, which I guess it makes sense now given the struggles of getting a single yard with an offensive line like this, but it just wasn't great. So we'll see if they go back to it.
I think Sark realized, look, it worked really good when you had Roschon Johnson because Roschon was the one running it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's something. It's kind of like the 6-0 line package. It was here and it was a part of the offense. And now poof, it's gone. Like we don't see anymore. I had my crazy idea last year, CJ, was I know Juan Davis played some quarterback at Everman, so last year I was like, hey, if you want to try it, maybe you throw Juan Davis behind center, but. If Sark heard my idea, he probably laughed or called me an idiot because we did not see said Juan Davis Wildcat package. As you said, like never like a hint of the closest we got was the Arch package.
And as far as Cole Hudson on this injury report, Sailor Joe asked, Cole Hudson a good thing? I mean, yeah, I feel like it's a good thing. Questionable is better than doubtful, and it's much better than out.
No, yeah, 100%. I think, again, I said it earlier, I think this is as the most favorable outcome you could have expected with the Wednesday night availability report for Texas. This is fantastic to see nobody's out, nobody is doubtful, given you had 3 starters that were very much up in the air or doubtful coming into today.
I just feel like I think from a game plan standpoint and like a readiness standpoint, we could see the best version of Texas on Saturday. I just, piecing some things together, we're kind of reading the tea leaves behind the scene and kind of looking at the big picture. I think they want to go kind of all in on this game. Like, look, you got through that stretch of 4 straight games away from home. You're coming back home. You got a ranked opponent. You get through Vanderbilt kind of like we talked about last night, and we talked about it on the channel all week. If you win this game, you get to the bye week at 7-2 with only one loss in conference, and you know exactly what's in front of you those last 3 games. Then you can exhale a little bit and then kind of take those. Basically, we kind of that wasn't the mindset they played with against Mississippi State or Kentucky, but you're going to go to Athens and you'll bring Arkansas and A&M to town. Basically, those are playoff elimination games, at that point. So I think I would be disappointed, guys, if we didn't see like the best version of Texas at kickoff that we've seen all year.
I mean, we can only hope so. We got a special guest coming up for everybody just around the corner here. We told you we might be talking to a doctor, and we do have a doctor waiting. First, Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about our friends over at South Point?
Yes, Texas football fans, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock, including the all-new 2025 Ram 1500. Get the real deal today and drive away in an all-new Ram that's proven to last. Plus, get employee incentive pricing right now. That's right. You pay what the employees pay. That is a real deal. So score big today at South Point Dodge. Come see them off I-35 in South Austin or at southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge.
All right, we got a special treat for you guys. We have Dr. Brett Robin, excuse me, former Longhorn running back in the early 2000s, and now an orthopedic surgeon at the Austin Orthopedic Institute in Austin, Georgetown. And Kaleem, welcome back to the show. I believe this is your second time here with us.
It is. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We got a lot of medical questions right now. A lot of medical questions that we've tried to answer, but there's only so much medical knowledge between the 3 journalistic type people in front of you. So I think first off, the main question, if y'all have any questions in the chat, feel free to drop them in and we can drop them over to Dr. Robin. But if Arch Manning is probably the biggest concern here, I'm sure you saw the hit this weekend of just like the bounce on the turf, the hit from behind, and the fact that he is practicing and just questionable on this injury report. He's still in concussion protocol, but can you just kind of fill us in on what the process is for this and just how obviously he's in concussion protocol? And when I've been in concussion protocol, it's been a lot more than 6 days. So if you just want to fill us in on how that
works. Yeah. So the protocols are different for each, team and university. And it's something that the team doctors and the coaches kind of get together at the beginning of the season. The university administrators will, and they'll adopt the protocol, if you will. So it's not, a universal protocol, but it has kind of the same characteristics throughout, which is, usually different phases of initially resting, for 24 to 48 hours, getting your tests to compare them to your baseline. So preseason, a lot of these guys or all these guys will go through, cognitive tests and neuro exams and evaluations. And so they look at those and they compare it to their baseline that they did in the summer, before camp started. And so you're putting together all this information to determine if the player's ready to kind of move on to the next phase of the protocol. So initial protocol is just rest, 24 to 48 hours, then reevaluating, and then starting off with, simple tasks, going to class, sitting in team meetings, making sure that you don't have any symptoms of, headaches or light problems, photophobia, difficulty concentrating, those types of things. And then progressing to the next stage, which starts as light exercise, extremely moderate light exercise, walking, not much strenuous at all, and then kind of increasing the amount of exercise and the intensity of the exercise each day. And so when it comes to the concussions, the problem is it's not, every concussion is different, and you don't know how you're going to respond to each phase of the protocol. And if you fail one of the protocol phases, then you go back and you depending on how you're feeling, you may just move back to the same step you're on the day before, or you may actually start all over. And so the problem with concussions is it's not like an MRI, where a usual injury in football, if you tear your ACL, you get an MRI, you confirm it, exam is confirmed with MRI, you get surgery, you're out 9 to 12 months. It's a very structured rehab and protocol of when you're coming back. And the concussion is just not that way. It's in fact the exact opposite. And so it's a day-to-day reevaluation, and you just kind of hope for the best that each phase you're feeling good enough to move on.
Yeah, Dr. Robin, I got a question for you. First, thanks for joining us this evening. I know you're a busy man, but you mentioned for concussions, right? Normally you're in a dark room, you keep screens away from it, no flashing lights, right? You try not to go to sleep immediately after. Is there anything in there that says I can't get behind the wheel of a 2025 Denali and drive through West Campus?
No, actually, it's funny you say that, because a lot of the concussion thing is rapidly changing. And initially, you're right. They said don't sleep. Well, now it's kind of swung back of sleeping is good, rest is good. You're kind of resting your brain, so to speak. So, I try to, when I'm talking to parents and players, really simplify like what a concussion is. And I think most kids that have played football long enough kind of understand, what a deep thigh bruise is. That's kind of the analogy I use. You have a deep bruise to your brain. Yeah. So if you sit around and do nothing, you get sore and stiff. So the old, keep the lights off, do nothing, just don't sleep, that's not really realistic, and it's actually probably not best. And so I think a lot of these protocols have sort of moved away from that thought into kind of more of a functional rehab, where you're just slowly introducing things and trying to live normal. So the fact that he is driving that quickly is a good sign, obviously.
Good sign he got pulled over.
Whether he was supposed to be, is a different story. But yeah, it is, the pendulum is always swinging, and I think right now it's swung back from the dark rooms are probably not necessary. The sleep thing really came on with making sure someone didn't have a head bleed. That's where you don't want to let someone go to sleep. But for a concussion, a functional rehab is kind of where it's at right now.
Yeah. Also with Brett's UT education, got that Eanes ISD background. So anybody that's got those credentials can cut on me freely. Brett, I've heard, medical professionals over here talk about mouthpieces can have, minimize the impact of concussions. We've seen a lot of discussion about guardian caps, just in general. Do you like the steps that, whether it's the helmet manufacturers, the equipment manufacturers have made to make the game safer?
I do. I think, these, you guys know, these kids get bigger and faster every year, and this just seems to be this is not a problem that's going away. And so making this as safe as possible for them, where they don't have any, lifelong problems. The latest research I saw actually did not really show a difference in the guardian caps, but the way I look at things is, is there a potential for harm? And with guardian caps, I don't see any potential for harm. So I think it's a smart thing. I think all these things are being evaluated and studied appropriately, and the goal is to take care of the players and find out how we can keep this from happening or minimize it. I don't think in football we're ever going to solve this problem. It's a violent sport, but I'm all for anything, any research, anything that helps the players.
And I think we also have a question about the Michael Taff injury as well. And that one probably more in line with your current specialty, which is orthopedic medicine. Right. The word on the street is it's a injury that required pins and screws in the bone. And I've personally had that done to me, and the recovery time was not 9 days. So he's currently practicing. He's obviously in a club. And what would you think about this kind of timeline returning with that kind of injury?
Well, so I don't know the specifics of the injury, and none of us do, but I think it was kind of fitting. The one thing I heard was the doctors aren't going to give a timeline on Taff because they know he'll try to beat it, which is exactly Michael Taff's mentality and why he's so good. But the advantage that Taff has is, as a defensive player, he can wear the club. He's not, trying to catch the ball at receiver. He's not holding on. He's not throwing the ball, obviously. And so there's a lot of where in the cast, I think, allows him to return a lot sooner and be protected. Now, the difference is going to be if he does have pins, which are going to be sticking out of the skin, which obviously is a much, bigger deal as far as an infection risk. You can wrap a hand up as much as possible, and sweat and blood and all the fun things of football can still manage their way around pins. So yeah. I would bet that the surgeon, if possible, would have used actual screws to get the skin over the hardware and the metal, just for that simple fact. But we saw it with Mateer. They're pushing the envelope, and these are big time games and big time players. And I think when you're dealing with a guy like Michael Taff, who if he had a fracture, which sounds like he did, then he's going to have really good bone. And if you get good screws across these fracture sites, it's pretty good. And you can get a good construct that you can feel comfortable letting them play a little bit earlier.
I think that's so fascinating. Ugh. I mean, I can't do the whole pins and needles and screws, and
yeah.
It's not for me. But it is fascinating, especially given what we went through about a month ago, waiting and kind of anticipating the news of John Mateer. Obviously, Taff now having his own hand or wrist injury as well. So it's been interesting to follow and kind of go down that own rabbit hole.
I was shocked that Mateer played as fast as he did. I mean, that was unbelievable. I have not seen somebody return from, a fractured hand that quickly. So,
yeah. And to your point, it's very fortunate for Michael Taff that he doesn't, one, have to catch a football very often, and two, throw it. I wanted to go real quick. I was going through a couple did you know stats about you, Dr. Robin? What'd you have against Baylor? What 3 career touchdowns against Baylor Bears? What was the deal there?
I just never liked Baylor. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. The green and the gold never sat well with me. So it's nothing personal. It just it's not my flavor.
Yeah, I think most of the chat would agree.
I think I was there for Brett. I think you scored in the 0-3 game in Waco. I think you scored a touchdown in that game, right?
I believe so.
Nothing.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think that was the game that Cedric sat out.
Yeah. Wow, I'd forgotten about that part of it. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that. Hey, real quick though, Brett. Jerry actually mentioned this a while back, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. CJ Baxter coming off of the knee injury. It was a multiple ligament injury. He's had hamstring issues, and I don't know, what they did to graft the new ligaments or anything like that. But I know there are some of those surgeries where you can graft from the hamstring. Do you see a correlation between athletes coming off of a major knee injury and then having recurring hamstring issues in the year to X number of months after?
That's a good question. CJ's injury was a multi-ligament injury, and I think everybody thinks that an ACL is the same as a multi-ligament injury, and it's not. I mean, what he's overcome, and for him to be back playing this season at the level he's playing at is beyond impressive. I mean, that this is an injury that a lot of guys don't come back from ever, and then if they do, it usually it can take 2 years. But for him to be back and doing what he's doing is really an incredible testament to his work ethic and his rehab and staying with the program. Having said that, yes, when you have multi-ligament injuries, you have to reconstruct these tendons, and what that means is tendons aren't repairable. We don't just sew them, the ACL or the ligaments, we don't sew them side to side. So when you have these ligament injuries, you have to take ligaments from somewhere else, and tendons from somewhere else to create new ligaments. And typically these come from either a hamstring, a patellar tendon, a quad tendon. And so, you do have to rob Peter to pay Paul. You can end up with some hamstring weakness, some quad weakness, depending on where these grafts come from. Sometimes we go to the other knee. just so that you're not, getting your one knee just beat up with all the ligament tears and then taking the tendons, after that. So there's a lot of speculation on how his knee was reconstructed and repaired, but that certainly could play a role in what the hamstring's doing right now.
When it comes to those ligament versus tendon repairs, when you replace, like, I don't know how to phrase this, when you replace a tendon with a or ligament with a tendon, whichever.
It's a ligament with a tendon typically, yes.
What is the difference in just like how strong that is? I mean, it's nothing like the original, obviously, but is that something, it's interesting to me of just like how that can hold up.
Yeah, so it does get to the same strength, but it takes a long time. And so, that's why these ACL tears are 9 to 12 months is you're basically taking a tendon, removing it from the body, and then putting it back in a different area. And your body takes that tendon and it ligamentizes the tendon. So these are great athletes in the best shape with good nutrition, but that process still takes 9 months for your body to create a new blood supply and to kind of grow that up into its own new ligament.
We got a question from Bob here. Can this ever cause nerve damage?
This being what? Oh, sorry.
I think maybe the reconstruction of the knee.
Typically not. When it comes to the knee, the nerves are pretty far in the back and the side of the knee, so we don't typically see that. Now, if you have a lateral collateral ligament injury, again, I don't remember know exactly which ligament CJ had, but if you are working around the lateral side or the outside of the knee, then you're working around the nerve, so you can end up with nerve damage from that. It's pretty unusual. That's the least one that we see torn, though. The ACL is number one, the MCL is second, and then the PCL. But it's pretty rare to have a lateral collateral injury.
We got a super chat from Jeff Carey here. Dr. Brett, do the big colleges / pros use advanced post-op healing therapies like HBOT, PRP, peptides? If not, why not?
So that's a good question. Yeah, they're definitely using PRP. PRP has a great track record, a lot of traditional medical science behind it. And so PRP is an excellent option. There's really no downside to PRP. It's your own cells. You're kind of sparking a super healing response to the area using your own cells. And so PRP is used a lot. It's got a lot of indications. It's something I wish was around when I played. Looking back, I think I had a handful of injuries that I would have loved to have treated with PRP. Peptides are not really in the traditional medicine role yet. And so, I'll be honest, I don't really know what the University of Texas, what their stance or role is on peptides. I don't even know, honestly, what the NCAA, if they're testing for that or how that works. I think, for the average person, they seem to be very safe, but they just they don't go through FDA approval. They don't have the same regulations and guidelines associated with them like the PRP does.
Interesting. And we had somebody ask what these acronyms mean. PRP is
folks in the chat like me.
Platelet-rich plasma, I believe. Yeah, I've gotten that done. I love the platelet-rich plasma for my knee. It's just insurance does not like to cover for it. Warning.
Yeah, that's the problem. But luckily, when you're dealing with the UT, that shouldn't be an issue.
They should take care of that pretty easily. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We don't want to take up any more of your time. Once again, this is Dr. Brett Robin joining us from the Orthopedic Institute at Austin. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Hook 'em.
Thank you very much.
See you later. Have a good night. All right. Before we move on, we'll hear from our friends over at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
Just realized how fitting of an ad that was for right after that segment. Advanced pain care right after a doctor. All right, we got a couple more questions. If you guys have any questions, make sure you get them in the chat. Once again, super chats will jump to the top of our list. We got one from Sous Vide here. Lance Jackson's injury. Do we know anything about what that is?
I do not. No.
Okay. Well, moving on. We had some news about coming out of Louisiana today. Some interesting stuff, some interesting comments from the Louisiana governor. I don't know if we have those pulled up quite yet, if we want to play that out. I know you had some comments on that, CJ.
I think it's hilarious. I think this is only in college football do you see something like this. The governor saying, hey, the athletic director of a given school is not making the decision. It is too important for my state, for the university, too impactful for myself even. It is unbelievably funny for me.
I think the clip is just, it speaks for itself.
Jeff, you're muted.
Do we know what this press conference was about?
Not about football, I don't think.
Yeah, because
protecting the most vulnerable.
I don't know, man, but we'll get to the clip. Jeff Landry was on one today.
The first question is absolutely correct. We are not going down a failed path. And I wanted to tell you something. This is a pattern. The guy that's here now that wrote that contract cost Texas A&M $70-something million. Right now, we got a $53 million liability. We are not doing that again. And you know what? I believe that we're going to find a great coach. I mean, maybe we'll let President Trump pick it. He loves winners. I'm not going to be picking the next coach. But I can promise you, we're going to pick a coach, and we're going to make sure that that coach is successful. And we're going to make sure that he's compensated properly. And we're going to put metrics on it. Because I'm tired of rewarding failure in this country. And then leaving the taxpayers on the foot, to foot the bill. So, yeah, I absolutely.
It's just so good.
No, I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I thought the best response to this was somebody posted it on our on the message board over on TexasFootball.com. I'll just read Steamboat Willie. I don't know if you're in the chat tonight, but thank you for this post. He said he then went for the encore, announcing that AD Scott Woodward wouldn't be hiring the next coach, and for good measure, tossing in that he'd rather have Donald Trump running the search than Woodward. He said that's not just throwing someone under the bus; that's backing over them twice and revving the engine.
And I mean, in Scott Woodward's defense, wasn't it Ross, the next guy up that did the buyout? It wasn't Scott. He did the extension, the next A&M coach.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, the next A&M coach did the extension for Bajor.
You failed on the hire in the first place, so you get the blame now.
That's fair.
For whatever it's worth, Brian Kelly and Jimbo Fisher both have different agents. For whatever it's worth, Jimbo Fisher's CAA, Jimmy Sexton, and Brian Kelly's Trace Armstrong.
I don't even think we heard the agent part of that quote, because he went off on how all of these college football coaches have the same agent and how there should be more oversight for that. The NCAA needs to have more oversight for that.
I just don't. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Don't politicians have better stuff to do, more ways to spend their time than worrying about sports?
I don't know. Go check the homicide rates in New Orleans whenever the Saints win versus when they lose. There's a correlation there, and I'm assuming it's pretty similar when LSU wins and loses. He's looking out for the safety of his citizens, and I commend him for that.
There you go, CJ. All right, I'll give you that. There you go.
So would you say it's AD getting fired soon? We got a question from Tracy. I mean,
yeah, he should have been gone a long time ago. I mean, the fact that this is even a conversation, but he's not. And Texas, very fortunate, because LSU is a school where you look around and you say in every single sport they should be competing for national championships, and they're not. Because of Scott Woodward.
So LSU doesn't have a president right now, right? So the president, whoever the new president is, probably going to want to hire their own athletic director. Hypothetically, like if you're Lane Kiffin Why would you go there right now with that structure so out of balance and like basically, the governor like basically threatening eminent domain where he's going to take over the football program? Like, why would Lane? I get that it's LSU, right? If you're Lane Kiffin, John Summerall, any of these head coaches that are up for this job, why would you leave where you're at to take this job? It just seems like a no-win situation. It seems like a giant cluster. Because whoever hires you is not going to be the person that's in a position to potentially fire you.
True, but it's still LSU, right? It's one of those things where I get what you're saying. It's a mess. And there's just probably 5 schools that you just can't say no to at any point if they give you an opportunity to coach for them. Texas won, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU. Florida maybe is in that conversation. Like Georgia at this point, probably so. Like I just couldn't imagine if I was a coach, especially coming from Tulane or a G5, where I would just say no because, oh, man, I don't know if my AD will be there. Nah, dude, I'm going to try to make that work as much as I possibly can.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody today about we were talking about different jobs, and I used the 2 examples I used were Charlie Strong and Billy Napier. They had good jobs where they were at before they took that plunge. But at the end of the day, they probably looked at it and said, you know what? The power structure there is a mess. It's probably not going to work out for me. But to your point, CJ, both those guys looked at it and said, you know what? I kind of have to take that job. Like it's one of those jobs that if you're offered it, like you have to take it. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's just when there's a reason why LSU in the last 25 years has won 3 national championships with 3 different head coaches. You got an absurd amount of talent. Like when you get it right, you're maybe the most talented team in the country. But man, it is such a mess that even with the advantage now of the transfer portal and the money you can have to build a roster, I don't know if it's worth like if I'm Lane Kiffin, and Ole Miss is willing to give me everything I want. Why would I mess with the headache of going to be the head coach at Florida or LSU?
Yeah, and Tommy, I want to bring this up because I think this is a fascinating conversation. Since we're on it, as a college football fan younger than CJ, I had Florida in a higher view than LSU. I don't disagree, but it's tough for me to fully agree. And Tommy, I appreciate the comment 100%. But Jeff, you mentioned 3 different head coaches have all won national championships at LSU. That is a school where you don't have to fight for really anything in your state. And when you talk about NIL and being able to recruit nationally, yeah, that's great. You don't need to do that, right? It's a luxury, and you can do that at LSU, but in Florida, you gotta play that game because you got to beat Miami. You got to beat Florida State. That's before you even get to anybody from the out of state or anybody from outside the region. LSU should be, without question, a team making the college football playoff every single year based off of the kids in their state alone. And then you can go piggyback off of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. You can go up to Texas, right? They do great jobs up there. I think and maybe this is where some of the disconnect comes in. I don't think there's a school in the country with more quote-unquote swag or appeal, maybe Oregon, than what LSU has to kids coming in from middle school to high school to making their decision. There's just something about looking at – maybe it's kind of getting out of the age range now. But when you had Tyrann Mathieu and Patrick Peterson and Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and just all these cool-ass players – it was so easy to look at LSU and say, man, it makes sense why a lot of kids want to go there.
Now, I think for the kids now, CJ, is that they're fresh on their mind is Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Patrick Queen. Yeah. Go watch an NFL game on Sunday. Somebody starting quarterback, starting receiver, their best defensive player is probably an LSU guy. And I know it's not but I hope everybody appreciates what CJ's saying about LSU. The in-state pressure Louisiana kids feel to go to LSU, it's unlike anything else in the country. And I'll give you a story. This was probably 10 to 15 years ago, but there was a kid in Louisiana, and he's down to Texas A&M and LSU, and the kid wanted to go to Texas A&M, and he didn't sign with LSU because the kid was basically told, hey, if you sign with A&M on Wednesday, your mom's probably not going to have a job on Thursday. That's how cutthroat it is in the state of Louisiana. Now with NIL, it's not that kind of, ironclad, like the fortress has some cracks in it now, but like it's unlike any other state, man. It is, it is wild down in Louisiana, the in-state pressure that some of these kids feel to go to LSU.
Yeah, I was about to say I lived in Louisiana for a couple of years. My first college was actually in Louisiana, and it was in Shreveport, not Baton Rouge. So with a grain of salt, but it really felt like, even though I was at a college in Louisiana, but LSU was still the college. Everybody at my college was LSU fans. Those that were not from Texas, because Shreveport is basically East Texas, but everybody is LSU fans. That's what it was. I used to have an LSU jersey because we dressed up in LSU stuff on the weekends. That's just how it was. And so it really is just a completely different concept in the state of Louisiana, because I mean, you have the LA Tech, but nobody's going to cheer for La Tech on Saturdays over LSU. Even La Tech fans are probably cheering for LSU half the time. They say they don't. But
Tulane fans cheer for LSU. Yeah, like I see Freshwater Cajun says Shreveport isn't Louisiana. It isn't.
I told you, glorified East Texas, glorified. Yeah. I do not recommend drive through. Do not stop. Do not turn. Do not go off the freeway.
I learned this under Mac Brown, kind of late in Mac Brown's years when Bo Davis joined the staff, because Bo obviously had ties to Louisiana. Texas went into Shreveport and got Shiro Davis out of Shreveport, and it's like, look. It's one thing to go get a kid from Shreveport. Like that's a battle that, depending on what you're selling, like you may win. You go anywhere south at that time, it was like you go anywhere south of Baton Rouge, that's a battle you're not going to win to flip a kid from LSU. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. All right, we got a lot more to talk about, a little bit about the Vandy injury report and about the game coming up this weekend. But first, we're going to hear from our friends over at Von Lane. From Texas football Saturdays to NFL Sundays, from ACL Fest to Formula One, this fall is stacked, and Von Lane is a smart way to get there. Forget TSA lines or fighting I-35 traffic. With Von Lane, you board in minutes at luxury hotel terminals. Then it's just 22 big first-class seats, each with Wi-Fi outlets and an onboard attendant bringing snacks, drinks, and yes, even beer and cocktails. You'll arrive relaxed and ready for kickoff, the concert, or family time. And now with booking open through December, you can also lock in Thanksgiving and Christmas travel now. Go to vonlane.com. Use code OTF25 and save $20 on your first ride. Von Lane, elevated regional bus transportation. Before we move on to the Vandy injury report, we got a question from Juan Garza. Would Arkansas be desperate and hire Brian Kelly?
I heard some folks, some videos getting thrown around on the socials talking about that. At this point, does Brian Kelly want to coach at this point? Like, what would be his motivation to coach?
He
probably ain't getting all that 50 some odd million, but he's going to get a pretty hefty sum of money to not coach. If I was Arkansas, honestly, I would be looking. I would try to look more, and I'm not just saying this because he's 20 minutes down the road from me right now. I would look more at a guy like GJ Kinney. I would try to find like a G5 guy that's hungry, that can evaluate, that can get some excitement in your program. I don't want to hire. It sounds disrespectful to call Brian Kelly a retread coach, but I don't mind disrespecting Brian Kelly. But I don't think a retread is what you need at Arkansas. I think you need to go get somebody that's young, that's hungry, that can give you a little bit of an edge that you don't have right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if you're Arkansas and you hire Brian Kelly, it's a failure on your part to find the best possible solution for your program, right? And I've learned this with position coaches, and it's not all the same, I understand, but when you look at how coaches or when you look at how fan bases talk about coaches that leave their program, and you sit there and wonder how they might project at future schools, more times than not, I feel like it's pretty, there's a pretty good line of correlation there. When schools are upset that their coach is leaving, that means that, hey, he did a good job. He's probably going to do a good job somewhere else. Yeah. When fan bases are pretty thrilled, or at least like in LSU's perspective, basically having Mardi Gras in the middle or late October because Brian Kelly's gone.
Celebrating an A&M splattering because Brian Kelly's gone.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Jeff, I think you're absolutely correct. If you're Arkansas, you go find one of the hot new names. You go get Golis from South Florida. Look, I like GJ Kinney. I think he's a good program builder. It's not been their season this year. They got 50 bombed by James Madison last night. But you find a guy with the
You didn't
hunger.
have to bring that up, but thank you.
I'm sorry, but you find a guy with hunger, not a guy with $100 million sitting in his bank account, not a care in the world whether or not his fans like him, his players like him. Shoot, maybe his wife doesn't even like him, but he doesn't care because, well, those checks still cash. And that's Brian Kelly.
I mean, I just, there's 3 Texas coaches, technically 4, like 4 Texas coaches that, left Texas. They weren't ready to leave Texas, but Texas was done with them. Fred Akers, John Makovic, Charlie Strong, Tom Herman. Their next stops after Texas were abject disasters. Like Charlie had one really good year at USF with a bunch of players Willie Taggart recruited. Like Fred Akers at Purdue, John Makovic at Arizona. It ended bad for Charlie at USF, and Tom never got things off the ground at FAU. Like it just when guys get fired at blue blood programs, it's because the trajectory is going down. The one guy, and shocker, who I'm going to take up for here, the one guy who I think might be different could be James Franklin, because you were in the national semifinals, a couple of months ago, and you just had a disastrous season. Like James Franklin, CJ, there's a lot of buzz, at least there was early this morning. I don't know how things have played out in the last few hours, that apparently Virginia Tech is zeroing in on James Franklin. That's the perfect job for James Franklin.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere between like 7-5 and 10-2, and you can live like a king in Blacksburg, Virginia. But like if I'm James Franklin, I probably don't want to jump into, the snake pit that is the SEC. I don't, like I said, if I'm Arkansas, somebody mentioned Silverfield at Memphis. Like, yeah, go hire somebody that's ready to make a name for themselves.
Yeah. No, you're right about James Franklin. I mean, that's one of those situations where he took a program that to heights that were unbeknownst for decades before, right? It had, I don't know when Penn State's last national championship was, or even top
86.
Look, I know Joe Pa was there for a long time, but they hadn't seen heights like that in quite some time. Whereas for Kelly, it was, look, your expectations are very, very clear. And each and every year they failed to come close to those expectations, and they weren't even in the correct stratosphere. Oh, that's an ugly photo for my camera to see that on. But no, he failed at LSU. All right, take it away, man.
We got a question for you, though, CJ, from Daniel. Would you ever entertain Josh McDaniel at the collegiate level?
Yeah, I mean, he has a good offense. The big thing is whenever you always talk about guys at the NFL level and whether or not you have interest in them in the college ranks, yeah, absolutely. The answer from college is more time than not, yes. But why would he leave that cushy NFL job where he probably has 5 months off of vacation to come down, recruit, deal with NIL, deal with the portal, and on top of that, maybe or maybe not, be the head guy, right? I think he's a great coach, and he's found ways to run offenses in different ways each year that he's needed to. But I just don't know how viable an option he will be for any of this, given he's got a cushy spot right now.
You know what's interesting too about this coaching carousel? One name you're not hearing that you used to hear all the time when the coaching carousel was popping off. I haven't heard Matt Campbell's name mentioned at all.
No.
And, I'll just go back to the Big 12 just for a second. Trust me, I'm not going to stay there long. But, Matt Campbell has turned down so many jobs that I think he's at the point where, like, I get it. Like, Matt Campbell seems to love Ames, but Iowa State's not a place where, like, you're like, oh, I'm going to be the head coach here for 15 years. Like, at some point, you got to get out when the getting's good. But Matt Campbell has turned down so many jobs. If I'm, an AD or a search firm, I'm not even going to waste my time calling Matt Campbell at this point.
Yeah. That and the cat at Minnesota, PJ Fleck. You have your window. And it lasted multiple years, Jeff. And for whatever reason, you get cozy, right? You get cozy in a Virginia Tech, right? You can do that. And they have. And that's, hey, they'll probably have a job for life. But you'll never be at Ohio State or Texas or LSU or Florida. You just got to be happy with where you are.
I see Ryan Nelson mentions Bill O'Brien's been a disaster at Boston College. My brother is a huge Houston Texans fan, and now has an irrational hatred for Boston College football because they had the audacity to hire Bill O'Brien.
All right, we'll get into a little bit more about the Vanderbilt game coming up after. Jeff, can you tell us about our friends over at Hayes City Store?
I sure can. There's a few restaurants, I mean very few, that when you go to them once, you just know right off the bat that it's a special place, and Hayes City Store is one of those places. Scratch-made Texas comfort food is what they're all about. The famous truck stop enchiladas, the chicken fried steak is award-winning. They got the homemade desserts. It's all great, and it's all made from scratch. They've got live music 6 nights a week, 50 beer taps, ice cold long necks, tasty margaritas. What more could you want? They've got 13 TVs in their ice house. That is a perfect setup for game day, whether you're talking about going out there on a Saturday or a Sunday. And if you're out there on Sunday, get that Sunday brunch they serve from 10 to 3. Hayes City Store is dog friendly. They got a tree net for the kids, plenty of space for the kids to run around. So gather your whole crew. Head on out to Hayes City Store. For more information, you can check out the website, hayescitystortx.com. Hayes City Store, it's uniquely Texas.
All right, we got a little more time, guys. Make sure y'all get in any questions you might have. Once again, Super Chats will jump to the top of our list. We've broken down the Texas injury report pretty significantly, but as far as the Vanderbilt injury report, just all names out. Nobody probable, nobody nothing else. Do any of these names stand out to you guys?
No, Vanderbilt's very healthy. There's not a player on this list right now.
I looked and I was like, I don't see any of these people that have contributed this season. So
no, they're in a great spot health wise, and maybe there's some cuts and bruises, whatever. The fact that they're not showing up is a great sign for Vanderbilt. They don't have a single player on this out list right now that's played more than 45 snaps. So that goes to show how healthy they are, and that's pretty impressive by them, right? Playing Missouri, playing LSU, and lead up to playing now Texas. Again, they might be sore, but they're not dealing with anything that's going to cause them to miss snaps from some of their key contributors.
Yeah, and as far as just Vanderbilt in general goes, we've talked a lot about this game. We've done this a couple weeks before, but as far as just your keys to the game, to winning this game, probably repetitive at this point, but I don't know. They might not be repetitive because I feel like a lot of the things that this team does is pretty inconsistent. But the keys to the game specifically against Vanderbilt, what would they be for you?
I'll give you a little spoiler for football theory tomorrow. I think the game is going to be won or lost, the matchup between the Vanderbilt offensive line and the Texas defensive front. Like, Vanderbilt doesn't have just a ton of NFL guys on the offensive line, right? Like what you would think about like a classic like Alabama offensive line in the SEC, but they might have the best, most efficient, effective together offensive line in the country. Like they lead the SEC in line yards per carry. Basically, they do their job getting yards for the running backs better than any other offensive line in the SEC. Only Texas A&M has allowed fewer tackles for loss. They're tied with A&M in terms of fewest sacks per game allowed. Now, granted, Diego Pavia's ability to extend the play, get out of the pocket, and escape pressure has a lot to do with that. But CJ, I don't know, CJ, how much Vandy you've watched this year, but they, Chris Klenekis is their offensive line coach. They do this really unique thing. Like they don't have like a true left tackle, left guard, right tackle.
Very fast.
Got like a quick side and a strong side. It's like old school football where they will flip the tackles and guards based on where the strength is for the play, and it's designed to maximize their run game. And they're just really effective, really efficient running the football. I think only Mississippi State and Arkansas have more runs from scrimmage of 10 or more yards this year than Vanderbilt does. There's only 3 teams in the SEC that have double-digit rushes from scrimmage of 30-plus yards: Arkansas, Missouri, and Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt will try to pound the football. They will try to shorten the game. They want to bleed the clock. They want to live in third and short. They're one of the most efficient teams in the country on fourth down too. So even if you stop them on third down, if they've got a manageable to go distance on fourth down, they will go for it, and they trust their offensive line and their quarterback. And Cedric Alexander's leading that backfield. LBJ product, the local kid. So I love this Vanderbilt offense. One of the more unique offenses you'll see Texas play this year.
Yeah, what's interesting, when they go for it on fourth down, they don't try to go get 3 yards when they need to, Jeff. No. It's weird. Fourth down, more times than not, has been their shot down, right? And what I mean by that is, you get to 2nd and 1 around midfield. All right, you got 2 or 3 more downs to get what you need to extend the drive, we can call a shot play here. Vanderbilt, for whatever reason, when they're in 4th and short and they go for it, boy, they're throwing that thing deep and it works. It's reinventing the sport.
And because they're so effective running the football, and that's their makeup, that's their DNA, who they want to be, you get a lot of one-on-ones on the outside. So it's not like they're asking Diego Pavia to make a bunch of NFL throws. It's like, hey, just get the ball close, like it's a 50-50 ball. Just, do your job, and and the receiver can go make a play. So yeah, I just like Vanderbilt's offense. But that said, I do think Texas matches up really well with Vanderbilt because of the depth. Texas, even if Lance Jackson is out or limited in this game, Texas still has a lot of bodies they can throw at that Vanderbilt offensive line. If Michael Taff is back, we talked about that earlier. I like the versatility now they've got with Jelani McDonald. And if I'm PK, this is probably a game where I take Anthony Hill. He never leaves the field, and I just tell him wherever Diego Pavia goes, that's where you're going to go. You're going to follow him. If he scrambles, I want you mirroring him, whatever. That's Anthony Hill's assignment. I've tried to avoid talking about the fact that we're getting ready. Like, we're down to Anthony Hill, basically his last 4 regular season games as a Longhorn. So I hope PK just unleashes hell in terms of maximizing and weaponizing Anthony Hill.
I mean, this would be a sight to see if Pavia runs and Taff will just club him right down. I mean, if he plays.
Hill didn't even need the club.
I was saying, I feel like you'd have to like hide Michael Taff's helmet from him or something to get him from not playing at this point, just from how passionate he is and how much he looks like he wants to be out there. Now, we have a couple more questions. Double D asked, what are Caldwell's strengths and weaknesses should Arch not be ready to come back in this game this week?
Yeah, I mean, let's go down this a little bit. Strengths, look, he's ready at a moment's notice, and I'm eager to see what it looks like for him to execute a full game plan, right? To go through a full week as a guy getting first team reps. Obviously, Arch was back at practice today, but you got to prepare one way or the other, or for both ways in terms of whether or not he will be available on Saturday. So that means Caldwell has been in the first team meetings. He's been in the first team huddle. He's been getting reps behind the first team offensive line and center. Look, he's a good athlete. My big question is, how much does Texas trust him or want him to run, knowing that the next option is a true freshman that's never taken a snap before? A weakness for Caldwell, and something that Vanderbilt does very well, is forced fumbles. 12 fumbles over the last 2 years for Matthew Caldwell, 7 a year ago. Got to protect the rock, especially in a muddy pocket. That's something Arch Manning has done a fantastic job of this year. And if you're at Matthew Caldwell and you come into this game, you got to keep that thing high and tight, unless you're in the back delivered to, pass the football. But that cannot be something that Texas gives up quick possessions with, is fumbles in the pocket.
Got another question here from Marco. Does Derek Williams get more playing time to help with Pavia and the big tight ends?
CJ, again, man, I feel like I'm giving away all of football theory on this show tonight, but please watch football theory tomorrow when it drops on the channel. I think maybe not Derek Williams. I think this could be a game where you're playing a lot of 40 personnel with 3 true linebackers on the field. This could be a game where you see a lot of Ty Anthony Smith playing over the tight end.
I like that.
All right.
I like that a lot.
All right, we got one more from Patrick Smith. Does Wingo look stiff running routes to you?
He doesn't look super fluid. And I think that's one of my biggest gripes with Ryan Wingo. I know folks look at the hands, and he obviously had 3 drops this past weekend. Look, for Ryan Wingo and for really all of these wide receivers, if you're not able to separate, boy, does life get hard. And I just haven't seen a lot of separation from Ryan Wingo. Now, he's been able to make some big plays for Texas, right? You don't have 170 yards receiving against an SEC team on the road if you're not talented or able to make the big play. But for whatever reason, when I watch him in the one-on-one routes, when you see him on the goal line, right, there's just not a lot of separation. I think that's a large reason why we've seen Texas target Parker Livingston so often in the red area, is because, hey, for whatever reason, he's been able to separate and create that space for a window for Arch Manning, and that's what I want to see more of. And I hope going into 2026, I know that's a ways away, but that's the leap for Ryan Wingo, because he's a good athlete, he's a heck of a receiver. Just got to find a way to separate more.
Yeah, he's not the first Texas receiver. And there's a few I'm thinking about over the years, like Xavier Worthy was like this, Devin Duvernay. Year where you're playing behind some veterans and you get a chance to just make some plays and kind of get your feet wet and you're used sparingly. You're expected to take on a bigger role as a sophomore, and for different reasons with all of those guys, your sophomore year just falls way short of expectations. But the saving grace of Ryan Wingo, and why I'm not giving up on Ryan Wingo, those other three guys I mentioned, they all came back and had really good junior seasons. So maybe, I don't know, something about highly recruited Texas wide receivers and maybe just needing a sophomore season to figure it out. But I'm not giving up on Ryan Wingo by any stretch.
We got a super chat from Jeff Carey, 8-4. I guess his prediction for the season end.
Jeff, I said it last night. I'll say it again. I'll say it, until we get through Saturday. Let me get through Saturday, and then we can start talking about Georgia. Yeah. And when we get through Georgia, then we start talking about Arkansas. So that's not CJ. That's not a cop-out answer by me. Like, I really, like, in my head, like, my brain cannot handle thinking about this team beyond the next game on the schedule.
No, I'm totally with you.
As weird as it is, I feel like you'll almost learn more about this team from this game against Vanderbilt. It's a different type of matchup. It's at home. This is the type of matchup they should be comfortable in. They should be confident going into this game. You're not walking into a stadium with a bunch of cowbells ringing your ears. It's your home crowd.
Yeah. Yes, and that should hold true, but you're also not walking into a stadium playing the 14th and the 16th ranked teams in the SEC, right? You got a top 10 team in the country opposite of you. So, yes, absolutely. You should be able to play behind the home fans, right? That is huge, right? It is very difficult to win road games in the SEC. We've heard that time and time again, probably too much this year, but for Texas, and like, Jeff, I'm with you, dude. I don't know anything about this team other than what they give you on a current week, on a given week. It's not that we learn more about this team; it's that they teach us more about themselves. Yeah. And sometimes they teach us that they're not good or not as good, or, hey, they got some juice offensively that they've been hiding. So we'll see after this weekend. But, yeah, you could win the next 4. You could lose the next 4. That's how volatile this team is right now.
Yeah, like it hurts, like just like right in this region, like right around here. It hurts thinking about anything beyond Saturday.
You know what it is? It's like you get like a funky electronic thing plugged in next to you, and you just hear that high pitched sound, and you're like, God, just get it away from me.
You know what's, dude? Okay, I know we're winding down. I don't hear that high pitched sound. When I got electronics plugged in, like, apparently my ring light makes that sound.
That means you're getting old, Jeff.
And like my wife is coming off.
There's like a pitch test of like, you're supposed, at this age you're supposed to be able to hear this. At this age you're supposed to be able to hear this. It's not an insult. It's just,
my wife will come in my office. She's like, "How can you stand that?" I'm like, "Stand what?" She's like, "That you don't hear that high pitched like screeching sound."
Is she younger than you?
By a year.
Well, maybe it also could be that you spend half of your time at football stadiums with the very high decibels of sound.
Yeah, doing all the radio I've done of, like, I've probably damaged my eardrum. So yeah, no, probably I've probably got all kinds of stuff going on in here.
Yeah, don't we all? We got one final question that I think we need to answer before we get out of here. What is CJ drinking post-game on 6th Street when Texas buries Pavia and company on Saturday? That is the kind of positivity we need, Daniel.
Yeah, that's a great question. Hopefully it's something blue, sugary, and got a little umbrella. Yeah,
that's what he's going to look like after he has that blue, sugary umbrella beverage. All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for joining us for this Wednesday night Longhorn live stream for On Texas Football. Make sure y'all tune into Coffee and Football in the morning and stay tuned for all of our programming for this weekend against Vanderbilt. Kickoff at 11 a.m. Tailgate information and all of that should be shared on our socials. But we got a super chat coming out the door. 09 offensive line versus 25 offensive line.
09.
The one that went to a national championship game?
I'd say very different.
Like which one's better? Like the 09 offensive line. Like, Chris Hall was an All-American center. Like you had a veteran center. David Snow ended up playing in the NFL. I'm trying to think, like Adam Ulatowski was a good, like that offensive line wasn't great, but like
They were getting the job done, doing something right.
look, and Colt masked a lot of deficiencies on that offense. Like I've talked about it, but yeah, like the biggest crime that offensive line had was like you basically like got ragdolled by Ndamukong Suh. Show me an offensive line in college football in 2009 that didn't get ragdolled by Ndamukong Suh. Like if that's that line's biggest crime, then okay, it's nothing compared to some of the stuff we've seen this year.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll go ahead and log off. I'm Amanda. That's Jeff and CJ. Thank y'all so much for joining us for this Longhorn live stream. Hook 'em horns, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you, Matthew.